From the Evening Standard in London, this is The Leader.
Evening Standard, it's your Evening Standard.
Hi, I'm David Marsland. This is an election where former members of the cabinet like David Gauke are telling the public not to vote for the party they used to be famed for being loyal to. How do we make sense of that? Let's ask a cartoonist.
There's so much noise and so many voices, and my job is to bring all these voices and all these different opinions down to one solid image that hopefully sums up what's going on.
The Standard's Christian Adams takes us through the skill of satire. Also,
he knows the importance of television in making issues suddenly very real, and the country is going to really get a sense of what these charges are, and it's going to be much harder now for Trump.
In the US, we speak to the Standard's columnist Philip Delvers Broughton as televised impeachment proceedings against Donald Trump begin. And
just to increased awareness among people in general, to spread information and to communicate the science.
Greta Thunberg's in a transatlantic race against time to get from the US to Spain for a climate conference. Will she make it? Taken from the Evening Standard's editorial column, this is The Leader. For the whole thing, pick up the newspaper or head to standard.co.uk/comment. In a moment, the art of politics with our cartoonist Christian Adams. Not so long ago, when the Conservatives were in trouble, the cry would come, "Uncork the Gawk!" So loyal, dependable and sensible was their minister, David Gauke. He could be relied upon to take to the dispatch box or the TV studio in the trickiest of situations and calm nerves. But now, the Gauke has uncorked himself, and it shows what trouble the Tories are in. He is running as an independent in South West Hertfordshire, the constituency he has represented for 14 years, in which Downing Street banned him from standing for again as a Conservative. His crime? He rebelled against his party whip on Brexit. Here's what the Standard thinks.
It is the same offence that Boris Johnson, Dominic Raab, Jacob Rees-Mogg and Priti Patel all committed within the last year. Now the Tory hypocrisy looks likely to cost them one of their safest home county seats. That fate would be certain if Jo Swinson followed the advice of local Liberal Democrats and stood down her candidate in a seat they now can't possibly win. The biggest loss for the Tories, however, is not just the constituency. Mr Gauke at the Treasury and as Lord Chancellor was an original thinker who put flesh on the bones of one nation conservatism. His forced departure is a sign of just how far the Conservative Party has diverted from the mainstream common ground that won it elections. His return to the party fold, if that were to happen in the years ahead, would be a sign of a Tory recovery as it becomes a broad movement again. In the meantime, we wish him well in this election battle.
It really wasn't that long ago it would be unthinkable for David Gauke to be called a rebel. These are very bizarre times, and our cartoonist Christian Adams has to make sense of it all. So we've pulled him away from the paint and brought him to our studio. Christian, it feels like a different type of election. You've been a cartoonist for some time. Is this easier or harder for you to cover?
It's easier because there is so much more going on. Elections are always extremely interesting because everything is highlighted politically. It's promises. It's what we will do with the NHS, what we will do with the climate change, whatever. So it highlights everything, and cartoonists love things in black and white. We don't like murky, mid-term, well, maybe this, maybe that. We like it black and white.
There are certainly some very colourful characters in politics just now. Boris Johnson, I think you quite like drawing Boris.
He is a gift. The best thing ever about Boris Johnson is you can draw him from behind and everybody still knows who he is. You just do the hair and the wider body, if I'm allowed to say that.
It's our producer who's supposed to be quiet.
Yeah. Anyway, that's the response that a cartoonist likes, so that's fine. So he's great. Corbyn's fantastic. It's good faces and it's good exaggerated characteristics. Really, they are both characters. I mean, you couldn't make Corbyn up. It's it's very, very fortuitous for cartoonists at the moment.
And in today's cartoon, you have the two of them effectively side by side, don't you? Just
Yes.
just talk us through today's cartoon.
Well,
standard.
today's cartoon, it's Boris Johnson apparently is going to do a speech this afternoon, and he is apparently going to use the word groundhoggery with a reference to Groundhog Day, where in the film the day repeats itself again and again and again. So I just thought groundhoggery, it's an animal, and cartoonists love drawing politicians as animals for some reason. Don't know why. It's just I love it. So I've done them both as groundhogs, repeating the same thing again and again and again. You can trust me. You can trust me. You can trust me.
In our multimedia world, social media, lots of tweets flying around, GIFs, memes, everything's animated. What is the appeal of a classic static newspaper cartoon? Why do they still work?
Firstly, I mean, it sounds so obvious, but a cartoon, the political cartoon, is the shape of a screen. Secondly, any cartoon backlit is better than it is on newsprint, actually. So they're really, really obvious. It sounds really sort of basic and obvious, but it's quite important that if you're looking on a screen and you're flipping and you're scrolling and, you know, which everybody does, it's so quick. To have a cartoon that's backlit and hopefully nice and bright and hopefully, nicely done, that's really important, I think. Also, people, you say static, people's attention span is getting shorter. The old cliche of a cartoon is worth 1,000 words. So the bolder and clearer it is in this age of lowering attention spans, I would say it's a pretty perfect thing for Twitter and websites especially, you know.
I mean, people, I often get I stop my tracks and look at a cartoon because I kind of rely on these things to make sense of everything that's going on. There's a really important role for satire and comedy for people to help people understand what's actually happening. Is that still the case?
Definitely. It really is. I mean, I would say that the main part of my job is to hone down all the noise, especially with Twitter and Facebook. There's so much noise and so many voices. And my job, hopefully, that I try and succeed in, is to bring all these voices and all these different opinions down to one solid image that hopefully sums up what's going on with the politics of the day.
Next.
People are angry about it, really angry. They really become angry because it's a hoax.
The reality TV star president who is furious about the televising of his impeachment proceedings. The impeachment inquiry into President Donald Trump is hitting the TV screens of America. How this new stage plays out may determine whether the president can win next year's US election, or even whether he lasts in office long enough to fight it. Joining us from the States is the Standard's columnist Philip Delves Broughton. Philip, the president himself's pretty angry about all this.
He's not happy, and the reason he's not happy is because, as a former television man himself, as a host of The Apprentice, someone who considers himself a master of the medium, he knows the importance of television in making issues suddenly very real. This is going from a sort of backroom investigation in which hearings were held in private, or we saw where people walking down corridors and disappearing into rooms. We're now going to see live testimony, and the country is going to really get a sense of what these charges are, and it's going to be much harder now for Trump to use his Twitter platform and try and cloud all of this. It's suddenly going to become a very different kind of scandal for him, and I think he realizes that the stakes are suddenly going to go up dramatically.
But the Republicans had called for all of this to be held in public, hadn't they? They didn't like it behind closed doors.
They didn't like it behind closed doors because, on the one hand, they felt that essentially what's happened is we've had several phases of this. The first is news of this leaked out. Was it just another example of Trump's unique way of being president of the United States, a way of dealing, that perhaps is more suited to being a real estate developer in New York than being president? Everything has been unconventional about this president. And the Republicans seem to think that once the truth was out, once it was before the American people, somehow this case would fall to pieces. That doesn't seem to have happened. It seems to be getting stronger every day. And now we're going to see this played out in the most public way possible. And this is perhaps a source of regret for a lot of Trump supporters.
Are the Democrats banking on people watching this and changing their opinions about President Trump? Are they looking at specifically President Trump's supporters to see what's happening?
Absolutely. I think this is, their great play to ensure that Trump doesn't get re-elected at the end of next year, November 2020. They've got a year to really try and destroy those re-election chances. Whether or not this impeachment process actually turfs him out of office, they hope that, in effect, it'll remove him from office by making sure that he doesn't get that majority in the Electoral College he got last time. And that's their real hope. This is all the scandals that have plagued Trump in the past 3 years are coming to a head now, and this is the Democrats' real chance to pin something on him. And they hope that'll be enough to ensure he doesn't get re-elected.
But could this backfire? We know that Nancy Pelosi had been very reluctant to go ahead with this, perhaps because it could actually strengthen President Trump's position.
Well, that's the thing. He seems to grow stronger like some sort of superhero. The more is thrown at him, the stronger he gets. The more he says this is a conspiracy, this is a witch hunt, the more rabid his political base becomes in saying, yes, this is just old-fashioned Washington trying to reverse an election, a Democratic election in 2016, and get Trump out of office undemocratically because they couldn't do so democratically. And I think Pelosi was very reluctant because over 3 years there have been so many calls for people to impeach Trump, go after him in the courts, drag his aides, his White House staff in front of Congress. And I think she wanted to wait until she felt they had something that was really strong enough to get him. She clearly thinks this is it. As I said, whether they actually get him through the impeachment process or they wound him severely enough to ensure that he can't be re-elected. Her hope is that once you've pulled the trigger, this bullet better travel in the way she wants it to.
Now, Greta Thunberg's about to set sail again. She's heading to Spain for an engagement that was moved very suddenly. The Standard's wishing her luck.
If Greta Thunberg gets seasick in the next few days, she'll have rioters in Chile to blame. Chaos in Santiago meant that the next big climate change conference was switched from South America to Spain, which left the campaigner with a problem. She had sailed to America over the summer and planned to head south overland. It turns out I've travelled half around the world the wrong way, she said when the venue changed continents. Now the owners of a 48-foot catamaran have come to the rescue. She's setting off on a voyage that could take 3 weeks. The conference starts on December 2nd. Bon voyage.
And that's the leader. We have an audio news update every weekday morning on our smart speakers. Just ask for the news from the Evening Standard. This podcast is back at 4 p.m. tomorrow.